Hi, this is David Sable, back again for New York Festival's Creativity from the Other Side. Coming to you today once again, thank goodness, from Silverstein Studios down at 7 World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan, the epicenter of Renaissance New York, where really just energy, creative energy is coming from all over the city. It's like just emanating from here in absolutely amazing, amazing ways. And I'm here, as always. Creativity from the Other Side is all about talking to the best creative people in our industry, in other industries, and just learning about what makes them creative. And today I'm so happy to have as our guest Adam Hessel, who is the Chief Creative Officer of Ogilvy Health, which I love, but more importantly for the discussion today is the Executive Jury President of a new award show that New York Festivals will be launching, which is the Health Awards. And you'll hear more about this as the year goes on, but it's an awesome category. It's really important. So pay attention, because he's head of the executive jury and he's going to tell you what you need to do to enter and, more importantly, to win. So Adam,
hey,
good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
Great to meet you.
And thank you for being, we're shaking hands, we're here, it's like so great. You know, today is usually irrelevant, the day that we do these, but actually today is important because it's Wednesday and it's the day that many of the mask regulations are being relaxed in New York. So we're able to be back together in person again. And I just love it. I love feeling the energy. I love seeing you. And thank you for being an FOD, a friend of David. So everybody who comes on ends up, thank God so far, being a friend of David. So I'm just telling you, I'm warning you, that's one of the...
Accepted.
That's one of the pieces that come.
Okay.
So let's just dive in and talk about Adam and talk about you. I'm going to go back. I'll go back in time.
Rewind.
Way back in time. And I see you at a potter's wheel. And I see your hands in the clay. What am I seeing?
Yeah, you're seeing me when I was 19 years old. Ceramics major, university. Yeah, it was an amazing time for sure. Not a care in the world.
And how'd you get into, so forget the not a care in the world, because we're going to get to that in your dad, but let's just talk about ceramics. You like this notion, very biblical, by the way, of from a lump of clay being, I think I was Fiddler on the Roof, right? From out of a little lump of clay. From this notion of being able to create, but there was also science to it, you've said. And tell us a little bit about that, like the creativity, the science, because I think it talks a lot about today.
Totally. So as a ceramist, you have to learn all aspects of ceramics. Obviously how to make a vessel, but also the types of clays that are more elastic, less elastic, how they heat up in the kiln, the type of glazes you could use in a kiln, the different kind of kilns. There's wood kilns, there's electric kilns, which was the science part of it that I have to say when I did get into ceramics 101 was pretty much let's just have fun with clay. And as you continue to major in it, you have to take some harder courses. It's like, oh gosh, here we are again. I guess I love it enough that I'm actually going to hunker down and focus and figure out how to make the best product.
And so what did you learn? As far as like, what? Give us some life lessons.
You're talking during the ceramics days? Yeah. What I learned during that process is you had to figure out the process from beginning to end, and it's a lengthy process. And also, if you are lazy in any of that process, the final product is going to show. So I mean, it really just it taught me that, from picking what kind of clay you're going to mix to what kind of pot or vessel you're going to throw, to how you're going to light the kiln, to how you're going to glaze the product and cook it again, gives you your final product. And all those steps really needed to be figured out and worked out. And in advertising, a very similar process, I'd say, from,
You anticipated my question.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's just, I didn't, you had me anticipated myself by asking that question. Creative has a process as well. Starts with the brief. To me, a brief is the foundation, the bedrock of a great idea. Without a great brief, it's a lot harder for the creatives to create the work. So, we need a great brief. From there, obviously, a great idea, a great client to see that idea, and then obviously production is the last phase of the process where, again, you could really up the work or bring it down.
So we're going to talk about work later, specifically the advertising kind of work, but what was the best thing you ever created? Like what piece stands out in your mind as the culmination of everything that you learned and felt and were able to create as a...
Yeah, I mean, back in the ceramics days, there were two pieces. It was two vessels that kind of were puzzle pieces that spoke to one another, and I had a gallery show your last year at university that you could actually sell your pieces. And our professors pushed, like, you should sell your work and you'll continue to make work, but this funds your work. Looking back, when a design professor I had bought that set, and looking back, I wish I never sold it because I missed them, and they would have been displayed still today.
Wow, but a design professor bought it, so I thought that was good. So now I'm going to push you back even further. I was just talking about Adam the kid, who was sort of developing a personality that went into this whole creative world, if you will. And I'm looking down just because I'm reading. I think what was really interesting, you once said, if it wasn't custom, it was just ordinary.
Got it, yep. So yeah, looking back, growing up in the 80s, there's a lot of like, neon, rock bands with like hairspray and wearing,
as if that didn't influence you at all.
No, totally. All this has influenced me and made me who I am today. But, I would never, whenever I got something, I'd always have to customize it and add something to it or remove something to it or paint it differently to really make it mine, which was always fun. It was always like a process for me, I always had the vision when I get something, what it could be, or after I got it, spend a lot of time and energy of what I saw it potentially developing into.
And you loved Garbage Pail Kids.
Love Garbage Pail. I still have my collection today.
Really?
It's one of the only things I have from growing up still, yeah.
One of my friends, by the way, owned the license to sell them in Europe and made a fortune, so there you go.
I always found how witty they were, and they played off of a lot of advertising products or products that you see in advertising. That as a child I was exposed to, like Ajax. I forgot it was Alex Ajax or something. But a lot of them were connected to products with a fun little spin on them. And the visuals I always loved.
So as you went from there to university, in the middle someplace, you were very into film. You liked this notion, you saw film as a creative place, the visual storytelling, the directing, how did that play into everything that you did?
Again, I think it was, there are certain films I would watch over and over, back growing up, we had VHS tapes, Blockbuster kind of hit the scene, but I would wear the tapes out. Sometimes I'd watch something, with 6 times within 24 hours, and just keep dissecting the movie and seeing different things or hearing different sounds, or picking up like different things in the plot that I did not catch the first or second time. Like Road Warrior really stood out to me as a child, drawing a blank.
For me too, as an adult. Well, one of the movies that actually, so Road Warrior I kind of got, I think although actually the first Road Warrior, when you look at the later versions, certainly was not as great a cinematic tour de force as the others, but it was very powerful, I'll agree. But one of the movies that you called out was Schindler's List.
Yeah.
And I found that fascinating that in that pan of movies that you were looking at that inspired you was a movie about the Holocaust.
Yeah, I mean, just the production design. I mean, obviously storytelling. I'm Jewish, so that movie just speaks to me anyway, reflecting on the past. But just the storytelling and the production value and design, the grandness of that movie. And also, it's a long movie. Back then, movies were not that long because they wouldn't keep you captivated. And the use of selective color in that movie, I thought
I was just going to ask you about that.
It was amazing. That was like one of the first times, again, you know, I see myself as, you know, grew up as an art director in the business, but always things visually stood out to me. That was one of the first times, or the only first time I saw that technique used. And it was done in such a powerful way of where that selective color came into the film.
It's interesting, the Gore, you know, the illustrator, did all the backdrops for Dracula on Broadway. And every scene was black and white, except it had one drop of red.
Yeah.
And so in each scene, it was once it was a flower, once it was something else, and once it was actually the blood.
Dripping, finally, yeah. Yeah.
I think that's so brilliant when...
Totally powerful, you know, and it's a fresh way of telling a story, and then, again, everybody grabs that technique, and then it's not as, you know, impactful, right? But at that point in time, that really stood out to me.
Yeah, no, he did it years before Schindler, but I think Schindler did it in movies like brilliantly. I agree with you. That was like an incredible.
And then Pulp Fiction too, just Tarantino's use of like telling a story, but all these different stories connecting, right, in one way, and breaking the movie into chapters. So it doesn't come as easy. Just sit back and let me watch it. You got to use your brain a little bit to reconnect. Oh wait, that happened before. This is happening now. That's happening in the future, which I always found fascinating. You know, he makes you work a little bit when you watch his movies.
I agree. What I hate is when people copy it and don't do it well. And then all of a sudden you say, "Oh yeah, chapter 3." Okay, but I don't get it. What happened? Chapter 3 of what?
Exactly.
It's always a problem. So then you went into the industry. You came into our business, and you know, again, you worked for some of my favorite companies, Publicis and Kaplan Thaler, SpikeDDB, and we'll talk about that because I'm really interested. I want to hear about Spike, for Deutsch, for TBWA, Chiat. I mean, that's like a rogues gallery of the best.
Definitely. You know, at every agency changes as time goes on, different leadership, different staff there, different brands. You know, reflecting back, I really enjoyed every agency I was at that moment in time and what that agency was doing at that time. You know, an amazing experience and learned a ton from a lot of amazing talent in the business, you know, which kept me engaged in the business, you know. Yeah, it's been great, you know, and I'm new job now, and it's like, you know, who knows what the future has.
Well, we're going to get to that in a second. Tell us about Spike. So, and the reason I'm asking the question is because I think many people think SpikeDDB is just, okay, like Spike put his name to it and it was a brilliant PR thing, but he actually worked. Yeah,
so SpikeDDB, I remember my interview with Spike to get the job.
So you interviewed with him?
Yeah, it's SpikeDDB, you know, when I joined, was, you know, a pretty small offshoot of DDB. It was in a time when there was a lot of investment in multicultural advertising. It was kind of like the beginning of, hey, this is a diverse country. We should be advertising, obviously, not just a certain class of people or certain, you know, demographic. So it was breaking ground for that reason then. And Spike was looking to, you know, push the creative bar. I interviewed with him, which was, you know, not the typical interview. I remember outside pacing around, and I was a smoker back then. I was probably smoked about 5-6 cigarettes before I walked up, and finally I said, all right, let me go up and meet Spike. But great guy, direct and to the point, got the job. And working for him was amazing. You know, first job working in advertising for somebody that doesn't really need to work. To be honest, and this is kind of like a fun side job for him, right? Because obviously he focuses in the film industry, and that's kind of, you know, his real passion. Obviously a lucrative career doing that, but was always connected to commercial work and loved it, right? The old Mars Blackman, Nike work. And ever since then, you know, he was really in touch with commercial work and also in touch with a lot of celebrity talent, especially in the athletic arena.
So what did you learn from Spike?
What I learned for Spike is stick to your guns as a creative. But obviously being smart about that and pushing to make sure your vision is seen. And obviously Spike, with that name, comes a lot of cachet and could pull that off more than,
And what's the best piece of work you did with Spike?
We did a Super Bowl spot for Pepsi at the time where, again, talking about technique, CGI, VFX was really becoming a thing, and there was some great post shops really investing in it. And there's a company called Method Studios that was really becoming hot and really breaking the mold of what you can do that you could not create practically. And we did a spot for Pepsi where it was a breakdance battle between like two crews, and one of the crews, after the first crew showed them their stuff, which was pretty good. Cracked open a few Pepsis, drank it, and then kind of jumped on top of one another to make this human breakdancer. But it's a culmination of 12 different humans on top of one another.
It is a great spot. I went back to look at it.
Yeah, and it's my eyes again.
And certainly for those days, you broke.
Trying to break the mold. And there are some other agencies, right at the cusp doing some great work in that arena, and then everyone trying to beat one another to get it done soon enough to get the work out. So I was really, I always remember that spot as being a good mark for what was produced there.
And your range is pretty broad. You went from Wendy's to cars to a bunch of Super Bowls, not just one. Give us one more piece of work that really stands out from that time. If any of the agencies doesn't make a difference in your head,
Sure.
As being something that would fit that mold. It was groundbreaking, different.
Yep, so I'd say at the Kaplan Thaler Group, working on Swiffer, right? It's P&G product, right? Used to clean your homes. Kind of, you could say, a boring category to some extent. And we had the opportunity, my partner and myself, to come up with a new campaign for them. And what we titled was Dysfunctional Tools. And I've always loved comedy and advertising. And we found a way to basically kind of show, people cleaning their homes, but breaking up with their old dysfunctional tool in a comedic way once they tried a Swiffer product, just because it's antiquated technology. And, we made these old cleaning tools feel old, outdated, but added some romance to those stories and always made sure we had some great music track from the 70s or 80s to drive that connection, that new love interest with the Swiffer product. So yeah, that was a great run. I think we did about 2 or 3 years of that campaign. And what I loved as well is the sales of the product went through the roof. We got a bunch of FEs for the campaign as well, just because it really moved the needle when it came to driving sales and refills, which was awesome.
So I'm just gonna stop you a minute. I'm just gonna turn to the camera, break the wall, and just say, folks, go look up that work, and I'll tell you why. I swear to you, you have to be the first grader who's ever sat here with me and talked about a product like Swiffer with that kind of passion and talked about the creativity that they put into it and ended talking about sales. So creatives, AdBud, all of you out there, pay attention to this guy. Pay attention to this Swiffer campaign. I went back and looked at it because I looked at all his work. It is great and it is fun, and it's the kind of thing that many creatives, even today, would just kind of throw away, not think that it's boring, they don't want to work on it, why would they do it, and certainly wouldn't follow it through the way you did. So congratulations.
Thanks.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah, again, when I look at advertising, and I think sometimes we could get too heady in the business, but it's entertainment. And if we're not entertaining the public, or the public's not willing to stop and look at it, or whoever we're advertising to, then we're not doing our jobs as advertisers. But a lot of times you have to strip a lot away to get to that point, and have to educate a lot of people and have them believe less is more, to be able to tell that punchline or create that single visual that's got great stopping power.
All right, so now here's Adam. Goes from Neon and Schindler's List to throwing ceramics, to some of the best consumer/ad agencies around, works on Wendy's and Aflac and Swiffer and works with Spike, and then goes into healthcare. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I just want to make sure I got this right, the press release that Ogilvy released said pharmaceutical meets consumer meets modern marketing. And they thought that that is close. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's a great assessment. I think Kim Johnson put those words to paper, who's the global CEO of Ogilvy Health. It was a point in time where I was at Publicis, and a lot of the healthcare work was making me jealous. Some great work coming out, which made me, think about what my next move would be career-wise. I've done general now for, almost 2 decades. Worked on a lot of different brands, but really have not worked in the healthcare sector. And it was kind of seemed like an interesting opportunity and challenge. I was reaching out to some folks I knew in the past regarding, do you know any good shops looking to push the needle creatively? And an old colleague was at GSW and said, hey, they're really looking to do something at GSW New York. Just brought in a new creative leadership team, Nick Caponier and Susan Perlbox. I think you should meet with them and kick the tires. I think it's going to be a good fit. Met with them and pretty much, said I'll start in 2 weeks, and it started there. And it was great. It was a good run. We produced a lot of great work. I was starting to learn the space more and more and kind of understanding some of the different categories and scopes of work that do not exist in general, but also some things that in general do not exist in healthcare, but there is a lot of overlap. I committed. I kind of kept looking for potential new jobs in general for maybe the first few months while I took the job and had some interviews. And then after a couple of months, I said, I'm committed to this, let's do it, and never look back.
So tell us a little bit about what makes it different. You said there's overlap, there isn't, and I've always loved the pharma side, much like I'll always like the B2B side, because at the end of the day, you're still talking to people.
Correct.
That's always, to me, the first big insight is no matter what you're selling, you're always talking to somebody, some person at the end of the day.
Yep, and I've, obviously we've watched TV or pre-roll on YouTube, and obviously we're advertised to
TV in its biggest sense. I call everything TV.
Yeah, now everything's some form of video content,
right,
but
exactly.
We've all been exposed to pharmaceutical advertising. Even me not working in the space, but getting in the space, I didn't realize there's a lot of scope, a lot of robust communication just to doctors to educate them on the products, which I found really interesting. And I didn't know that was really a thing. I thought, great, I'm in healthcare, I'm just going to communicate to people in need for a product. But yeah, realizing we do work as well to talk to doctors, I thought was really interesting. And a lot of the work that we've produced since being in the sector that I really love for, the creative purity of it has been work to communicate towards doctors why our client's product differentiates from another client's product for a treatment that you could use in that same, indication. So that was one of the biggest aha moments for me that I didn't know existed.
So you've shared a few pieces of work with us. So now take that same lens that you talked about, the Spike work and the Swiffer, and apply it to pharma. Give us a piece of work.
A few pieces that I'm proud of that we produced, while I've been in healthcare. One was for Tecentriq, and it's an oncology product. The brief was they have basically a new dosing regimen, right? You could now use the product in different dosages. You could use the product now in different dosages based on your patient's need. Clever visual, again, I always love simple visuals, was the vial that a doctor would interact with. But to visualize this, now you have a more flexible dosage opportunity with it. to make that vial feel like a spring. So it's like this glass spring, simple visual to connect. Hey, you got a different, flexible dosing options with your brand now. That one really sticks out to me. Super simple. Anybody could get it.
All right, how about I pick one out, which I'm not sure if it was on the pro bono or whatever, but it is pretty funny. It ain't reefer?
Yeah. Yeah.
I got to tell you, I saw that. I started to roll on the floor.
Yeah, so we had at GSW a CBD brand, right? CBD was really starting to become a lot of talk track, a lot of noise in the news and in the industry. Great benefits, great health benefits. And we were doing work for a local CBD shop, New York, NYC Botanics. Great product. And one of the real benefits too is health benefit. A lot of dogs have anxiety, scratching, nervous qualities to them, thunder, lightning. So we were like, why don't we do a campaign as well? Because they do have a pet product. So yeah, look, the difference between CBD and THC is you get all the health benefits, but you don't get high, right? So we were like, let's do a campaign. It's like basically featuring that and featuring some fun animals, looking like they're totally relaxed and mellowed out, which the product does without the effects of the THC portion of it.
It was a lot of fun. We'll have to make sure, even though it's not what you're doing right now, but that they enter in the Hell's Kitchen Awards, which is another whole category we have now, which should be a lot of fun.
Yep, so I'm trying to remember. We did submit that work. That work was probably done about 3 years ago. So it did pretty good in some of the shows.
Well, if you have any work like that around now, remember the Hell's Kitchens Awards for right now. So let's talk about COVID and what COVID did. I like your notion that nothing beats like sort of the in-person, like we are now, the energy and the thing, but you get that it's hybrid. It's so interesting because I speak to so many creative directors from around the world, and there's some who are still caught up in the, oh no, it's way more efficient to work from anywhere, and okay, we all got that next. But yesterday, for example, we spoke to someone who was in the office for the first time in almost a year and a half, and there were people in the office, and he didn't know it. Like, it was so astounding because I'm used to like kids running in the middle of interviews and stuff that we do, and he said, "Oh, like you have to forgive me if people walk in." And we said, "No, that'd be cool." And then he started telling us about how much better it was for him having the people on. So what's your view on how this is going to shake out?
Yeah, I think obviously you mentioned the big mask restriction left today in NYC, which is amazing. I think
in certain places.
In certain places, but I think as things lighten up, people will feel more comfortable, obviously, right? Because we rely on the news and experts in the space to educate us on how we could be safe. For me, I think being in person. I think for me, being in person, the magic truly happens. I think, when COVID started, we quickly adapted to like Teams and Zoom, and it was kind of new and novelty, and we used it to the best of the ability. And I think the work product maintained, but I do feel like there's now a sense of like Teams burnout. I got to say, I've said to a few people recently, I've had more meaningful discussions and conversations really holding up my mobile to my ear than sitting on Teams. I think people just get in a habit now too of multitasking and emailing and while you're on camera, and you're not really 100% focused and in the moment. And again, in person, been in plenty of meetings where somebody picks up their phone and obviously is replying back, but there's body language and everyone kind of knows what everybody's doing at that moment in time, but are busted because we're sitting in front of one another like we are now.
What about the energy?
Again, yeah, I think the work's getting done and the work's getting done great, but I think motivating a team comes with energy and being around one another and connecting and walking by and saying, hey, what do you think about this? Or, hey, I had a thought, what do you think about that for what we just talked about a few hours ago? And it's really hard to just just call. And
right, I got to call you, I got to get you on Zoom, on Teams.
And it's like everybody wants to set up meetings, and it's not as spontaneous.
We've lost the spontaneity.
Yeah, and I feel like, I have ideas, and I have to jot them down now because I'll forget them because I can't just walk by and communicate it.
I call it the serendipity. We've lost that serendipitous energy.
But look, the great ones are going to continue to put out a great product and find a way to do it, even with, not being in person. For me, I love being in person. I love the idea of, a couple days in a week and a couple of days not to ease into it. But I'm curious as well to see where the industry goes, like a year or 2 or 3 from now with, in person, not in person. And I think, we have to respect to our employees, what's right for them, what's best for them, their sensitivity towards their health, their potential comorbidities.
Right. Yeah, the sensitivity towards their health while they sit in bars and restaurants, but it doesn't seem to be quite a big initiative.
No, and I think, look, we're since the beginning of time, humans are totally different.
I get the shit work environment because I think if anything, to me the best side of this all is that it has uncovered and made public, and you can't hide anymore. The fact that so many work environments were just toxic or not nice or not good. And, at the end of the day, if I have to come in and hotel or hot desk, I might as well go sit in Starbucks. Like, I get that.
Yeah.
So I think this is, we got to reset ourselves. Like, what do people really want, and why do they come into an office?
Totally. So I think it's never going to go back to what it used to be. So that phrase to me is not happening. But I think, it excites me. Well, what's the future going to be? I think there are people that want to get together. I think as humans, part of the experience of being human is interacting with one another.
My mantra from the beginning has been: there's no new normal.
Right.
So everybody who keeps saying, "Oh yeah, it's the new normal. We're waiting for the new." There is no new normal. It changes every day.
Yeah.
And I think that we're in the most, which is good. We're in the most dynamic situation. So it's going to be hybrid. Maybe it stays hybrid forever. Maybe some new kind of hybrid comes up. I don't know, but I think it's going to be interesting.
100. And I don't have the crystal ball. The only thing I'm trying to do is just making sure we're figuring out how to get the work done and the best the work.
All right, so let's pivot. Yeah. Let's pivot to the awards, to the new award category, which I think is really exciting. So we're coming back, healthcare awards. It's going to be amazing, as all of our categories are. What is interesting to this category to you? What should we be thinking about? What should everybody be thinking about?
Yep. So
what are you looking for? What are you hoping for?
Yeah, and again, the health space is always changing, right? There's a lot of obviously unmet need in the health space now, and there's a lot of great work that's being done and created. But as time goes on, there's always new unmet need that's identified, and who's so close and grabbing that and creating work off of that, to me is like an amazing space to go for work, for just being innovative, for an unmet need. I always love craft too, as well, and it seems like the work's just getting retooled and tooled better and better as each year goes on. Where again, I'm just jealous of a lot of things I see and like, shit, I wish I did it like that or visualize something like that, and like, good for them. I think that's a great space as well for healthcare. A lot of the HCP work, focused really just to healthcare professionals as well. I've seen a big uptick on what would have been considered, a high bar in the past, being pushed way past where it used to be as well. And that it's hard to do it there because a lot of the work is a lot of regulation in that category. But I think we're getting smarter as creative strategists, and also educating our clients, willing to improve the quality of the work in those categories as well, which I think is amazing. So I think obviously we work in all mediums as well. I'm hearing there's some amazing work being developed too at a few agencies for like NFTs in the healthcare space, which makes me scratch my head and like, okay, reverse engineer what that could be. And that gets me excited as well, and metaverse presentations and where health is going to go in those spaces as well. I think it's not going to be catching up to where maybe general products are. If anything, maybe it's going to enter those spaces sooner and quicker. So that excites me as well to kind of new territory.
I hadn't thought about that. It's amazing. Yeah. All right, great. So we're going to get you back after the awards, and we'll talk about what you saw, because I'm fascinated now about, as you talked about NFTs and metaverse, I started to reverse engineer as well. So I want to see, like, can you get sick in the metaverse? Like, that's really interesting. Tell me, did you have COVID? What was your personal experience during COVID? Speaking, by the way, as a twice hit human.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say maybe. There was a week I didn't feel great, but also didn't go to the doctor. And I just felt run down, like I had a bad cold or the flu. Chances are. Yeah, I had a few PCR tests for having when I traveled that came up negative, but outside of that, pretty much locked down and tried to stay healthy.
Stay safe. Adam, I can't thank you enough. Thanks so much for being on Creativity from the Other Side. On behalf of New York Festivals, thank you for taking on the new category, the healthcare category. I think it's going to be amazing. Thank you for being an FOD, a friend to David. And by the way, hold your hand up. So, no, the other hand. Show your. Oh. Yeah. So, just in case anybody doesn't get it, this is one of the things that bonded us like right away. So we're off to go shopping to get some new bracelets and CR. So again, this is David Sable. So happy to have been talking with Adam. So many things that we learned. I just think the whole point of I love how you turned your experience with ceramics into what we do and how it works, and it's just so clear, the direction. So I think everybody needs to think about that. Look up the Swiffer work again, because that is, so far, I swear, in the couple of years that I've been doing this and interviewing people, one of the great moments for me to have a great creative director talk about a piece of work like that with the pride that you did is something that we should all be proud of. Everybody in the industry should be proud of that, and the way that you presented that work. And so, once again, David Sable for New York Festivals, Creativity from the Other Side. Thank you so much. Adam Hessel, friend of David, Chief Creative Officer of Ogilvy Health. And stay safe, everyone. Be well.